Hi, everybody. This is my third time recording this because my phone rang both times the other time. The name of my lecture is The War for Independence, and the class is an undergraduate U.S. History to 1877 course. I guess this lecture snippet will just start in the year 1777, assuming I had been talking before about the previous. So, the spring of 1777. Now, the American Continental Army had just suffered a major defeat at the Battle of Quebec. And the British High Command was looking to completely snuff out this American rebellion, and had a good chance to do so. So the plan was twofold: to A, cut off the upper colonies, New York, the upper colonies, from the lower, and then B, take the Hudson River. Now, the Hudson River, of course, was how the Continental Army transported a lot of their supplies and troops. So in doing these two things, the British High Command believed that the Continental Army would basically fall apart, and surrender would be inevitable. And that probably would have been correct had it not gone down the way it did. So to start, there were supposed to be three British armies that were to head down and enact this plan. Now, only one of those British armies actually made it where they were supposed to on time, and that was Lieutenant General John Burgoyne's army. Now, Burgoyne's British regulars also had some Hessian troops as well. Came into contact with Horatio Gates, who was the commander of the northern armies of the Continental Army, September of 1777. So the British under Burgoyne and the Continental Army under Gates clashed at what would be the battles of Saratoga. Now, you've probably heard of the Battle of Saratoga, but it was actually technically two. So the first battle of Saratoga was actually called the Battle of Freeman's Farm. It was a loyalist farm that had been abandoned, and that was where Benedict Arnold, one-time general, of course, under Gates, who had a disdain for Arnold, that was where his famed injury occurred. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But the Battle of Freeman's Farm, the result was actually technically a British victory. The Americans had to retreat, but the British lost so many of their soldiers that Burgoyne's army was essentially crippled at that point, and had to kind of withdraw as well. Now, these battles, these engagements being very protracted as they were, Burgoyne kind of entrenched himself and his forces, and then suffered through some pretty nasty weather, some supply chain issues, and by October of 1777, he had sent out a scouting party. There was a second battle of Saratoga, the Battle of Bemis Heights. And it was at this battle that Gates, of course, kind of scored a critical victory, and was able to, in effect, surround Burgoyne's army with his now swelled 13,000 strong Continental forces. So this was incredibly significant in multiple ways. First off, the Battle of Saratoga, of course, was a major turning point in the American Revolution, which, as we will discuss, persuaded namely the French, but also the Spanish and the Dutch to join in the fighting and support the American Continental Army. Another major aspect of the Battle of Saratoga is that this was the first time in world history that a British army had surrendered, which is incredibly amazing. That a kind of what is perceived as a ragtag group of rebel fighters in the American Continental Army, although it definitely was not. Scored this massive blow over the world's greatest military power. Now there is a third. There is a third significance to this battle, and it's our friend Benedict Arnold that we mentioned earlier. Now, Arnold's name, of course, is pretty synonymous with the word traitor, right? But Benedict Arnold was a hero at the battles of Saratoga, especially Freeman's Hill, or Freeman's Farm, excuse me. At Freeman's Farm, Arnold rode into the fray, took a musket ball to the leg, shattered his femur, which was pretty much the same spot he was wounded in the Battle of Quebec, which put him out of action. But I mean, it gained him lots of renown, and Washington and Congress both officially thanked Benedict Arnold, and he was promoted to Major General and sent to become the military governor of what was the largest city in America at the time, which was Philadelphia. Now, this all sounds amazing, right? Of course, a shot to the leg, breaking your femur, not so great, but all of this acknowledgement, all of the benefits. But this was something that Arnold had been pushing for a long time. His promotions were constantly put down, denied. He even quit a time or two. And of course, his superior at the Battle of Saratoga, Horatio Gates, had a pretty great disdain for Arnold. And this had all inspired this kind of brewing discontent within Arnold. And of course, in his time as the military governor of Philadelphia, he ended up marrying a woman by the name of Peggy Shippen, who had very strong loyalist sympathies. And she got him in touch with some British commanders. Arnold got some bad ideas, requested an appointment at West Point, the fortified stronghold at West Point, which of course is a major area of the Hudson River, and essentially tried to give it away to the British. But he failed. Washington realized it before it was too late, and he escaped, ran off. Washington declared that if Arnold was caught, captured, he was to be executed. So, amazingly divisive, controversial figure that was kind of both made and, in a sense, killed at the Battle of Saratoga. But that, of course, leads us to then the ending of the year 1777. Now, some other battles occurred, but Washington's army itself was struggling. The British sailed some invasion forces from New York City into the Chesapeake, and eventually marched and took Philadelphia itself. Like I mentioned, largest city, sprawling metropolis of 30,000 people, which was a lot at the time. And the British defeated Washington at the Battle of Brandywine. Philadelphia was captured and occupied, and Congress, of course, at the time stationed in Philadelphia, fled to Yorktown, of course, in Pennsylvania. And in comes the winter. Winter is coming. And winter did come, and it came right down on the heads of the Continental Army. Washington's forces were tired. They were running low. Months and months of supply shortages, and this attempt at regrowth, some discontent with the contracts that some of these soldiers were signing. The pay wasn't coming through. And then all of that to boot, they had settled down in Valley Forge, which was about 20 miles away from Philadelphia. That way they could kind of keep the British there in check, but be far enough away that they could raise alarm if they were to march. But at this location, this Valley Forge, like I said, supplies running low, Soldiers' discontent, the food was rice and vinegar, kind of a mixture of the two. They called it fire cakes. Doesn't sound that appetizing to me. The clothing was wearing thin, the blankets were non existent, disease like typhoid was running rampant. More soldiers in the Continental Army were killed at Valley Forge, I should say, died at Valley Forge of disease than were killed in any single major battle in the American Revolution. That is insane. And out of all of this, what does Washington do? Washington reorganizes, regalvanizes with help from Prussian General Friedrich von Steuben. They retrain these soldiers. They put them through the drills. Washington puts out these orders, execute people who desert. It got really, really intense. And through that intense crucible, out comes a stronger, better trained Continental Army. And in March of the following year, 1778, they march out of Valley Forge and off to then kick the British down and take them out of Philadelphia. And then, of course, the lecture continues on through those latter years of the Revolution all the way up to Yorktown. So that's kind of what I think this assignment was going to be. This kind of like a snippet of this lecture. Of course, it would be larger in scale than that, maybe even split into two. But I would very much appreciate the comments, analysis, and I look forward to watching all of you guys. So.